Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm as always your host, Brody Robertson. Welcome back to the show. Today we have a returning guest. How many times have you been here? I don't remember.
3 times.
Oh,
That's the third time.
oh, this is the third time. Okay. Welcome back to the show, TheEvilSkeleton. How's it going?
I'm pretty well, and you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Have I ever asked you, like, where your name actually came from? Why is that the name you use?
TheEvilSkeleton.
Yeah.
That was like a decade ago or more, actually. When I used to play Minecraft,
Mhm.
and yeah, like I got the name TheEvilSkeleton because I felt a little bit creative at the time, and I was like, okay, well, that's a pretty cool name, I guess.
Mhm.
At least the 12-year-old me, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
nowadays I'm like, yeah, I want to stick with it. It it's like nostalgic for me.
Mm. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know exactly the feeling. Like, the name that I'm using is from back when I used to play Call of Duty when I was like 14. I just never changed it, and then I used the same name on RuneScape for a while as well. And it's like had some slight variations to it, but it's pretty much been the same name the entire time. And like, look, I could think of something new, but it's gonna sound just as cringe anyway. So I might as well just stick with the cringe I know.
Hell yes. Cringe with nostalgia.
Exactly. So, how you been doing? What you been getting up to?
Yeah, well, not really much, I guess. I kind of dropped out, like left the bottles project,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like really affecting my mental health,
Mm-hmm.
because of all the problems we were having.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, I've been focusing mainly on GNOME Calendar
Mm-hmm.
and in some to some extent GNOME settings as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, like for GNOME Calendar, like I'm adding a few features, fixing some bugs, and doing a lot of like code related improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And with GNOME settings, I just like uh yeah, like I just there was this one time when I had like submitted 10 merge requests within like 2 hours. Uh,
Okay.
bec- yeah, so like the thing is, so GNOME settings is a massive project, right? So like
Right.
if you
Right.
want to port, let's say you want to port a widget to another widget,
Mm-hmm.
like it's gonna be like many hundreds of lines of code.
Right.
So like you have to split them up,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like literally what happened. Like that's I went to like each panel, like each page, and changed from the
I
old.
think I
Yeah,
found the ones that port ADW switch row and then like 10 commits all with different parts.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, what were you trying to do there? What was the goal of that?
Okay, so like when we look at libadwaita,
Mm.
there is an action row, like just a row, and
Mm-hmm.
in that you put a switch in, like a little switch.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that like we used to do it is that we used to add the action row and then the switch manually, and then link them and all that. But that new widget, like a ADW switch row,
Mm-hmm.
does all of that automatically. So you
Right.
just need to like bind the enable and disable switches, and you're basically done.
Right.
It's like a
Okay.
lot of reduction in code and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of reduction in duplication as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice like it was annoying, but it was pretty cool like at the same time.
Of all of the random aspects of GNOME, because there's like a lot of like little components, why why is it GNOME settings and calendar that grabbed your attention?
Um, Mainly because those two projects are like I would say the most cursed GNOME projects. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, GNOME settings like it's in many ways like I'm not blaming the developers and the maintainers. Like
Mhm.
it is just naturally a disaster.
Well, they're both
There's
really old
so
projects, aren't they?
it's less about being old and more that like there's a lot to maintain and very
Right.
little maintainers. So
Okay.
like
Yeah.
there. hold on, let me show you this
Okay.
printer dialog. It's like the GTK2 days, like
Oh no.
old GNOME. It's something. Oh, where is it? Printers, printing options. Okay. Oh my god, it is awful. Okay, I sent a screenshot. That's how it looks like. I mean, I didn't touch that, but that's
Right.
just one of the examples.
What? Wait. Why does it? Wait. It just looks like a GTK2 app that's been themed like a libadwaita app.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, it is. It was like almost never touched. Like they're
Right.
all old widgets, and it's just awful.
Mhm. For anyone
Um,
who's just
it
listening, so you have like the modern GTK4 header. You got like GTK4 buttons in it, but then the select on the left hand side is just a list of text. Like there's nothing special about it. It is as simple as a list as you can get. It you know, just think of what like a GTK2 app would be, and then just throw modern design elements into it and just see what happens.
yeah. So yeah, like that's just one of the cursed areas,
Mm-hmm.
and now like I don't want to touch that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't want to touch that like area of the code. But it's also that like I only where I can install and run as a Flatpak because like GNOME Settings does run inside a Flatpak, but it's
Mm-hmm.
very limited.
Mm-hmm.
So like where I can run it as a Flatpak, like I do the changes and all that
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to start a toolbox container and install the uh like an experimental version of libadwaita and then like just break my head over that. So I just do as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, as and with GNOME Calendar, well, one of the reasons is because like um, it's because of Georges. Like I think he's just a wonderful person,
Mm-hmm.
and so I decided to be like, okay, let me help this guy and his project. Um, but it's also that like there's at least at the time a lot of the um GNOME Calendar stuff were like half ported to GTK4 plus libadwaita. So like there is still a lot of old widgets being used. There are also a lot of accessibility issues, and like right
Mm-hmm.
now, like as we like at least as of today, GNOME Calendar is still very inaccessible. Like
Mm-hmm.
you cannot use it with a keyboard at all. It
Oh,
is
okay.
it's really sad. But it's not really the maintainer's fault. Like George is literally the only code maintainer, and I've looked at the code. I'm like, uh, I'm gonna be honest. Like I was, I'm just fully impressed. Like this guy can single-handedly manage, like at least in terms of code, he can single-handedly manage GNOME Calendar is very it. At least to me, it's really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't blame him that it has poor. Well, it is literally not accessible
Mm-hmm.
because he is the only maintainer, and
Well, it'd
like
be
I
one
do
thing
want to
if he
put some.
worked on one
Yeah,
project, but he also like is involved in OBS and portals and a bunch of other things. Like if he was just the GNOME Calendar maintainer and that's all he did, I'm sure it'd be in a much better state. But he has to get involved in
yeah,
everything else as well.
yeah, exactly. And it's just yeah. I mean, I'm still really happy of his work. Like GNOME
Mm-hmm.
Calendar is my favorite GNOME app so far. Which is funny because I used to never use the calendar app until I tried GNOME Calendar and I started contributing to it. Um, so like I guess that's a really nice benefit for me now. Um, but it's also that like I think it's the only calendar app that isn't overwhelming for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's oh yeah, and another thing with GNOME Calendar that is like not exactly in a great state is that it's not mobile friendly either,
Right.
which is usually expected from a libadwaita app. But it's also that like he is the only maintainer and hardly anyone wants to contribute to a calendar app,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. Um, but yeah, so like I ported a few stuff to the latest widgets. I fixed a few bugs. I also recently added a little like what's called a separator for each month. Like, hold on, let me send a link.
Okay.
Uh, uh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like you can see like
Oh yeah, I saw this
in
post. Yep.
each month. Yeah, there are a little bit like separators, and that's one of the things I added in the app. And yeah, just
Right.
little stuff like that.
Mhm.
Very nice, like additions, and yeah, that's very much what I've been involved in GNOME so far.
So you meant?
And
Oh, sorry.
sometimes,
Go on.
yeah, sorry, like, and sometimes just a few like accessibility related contributions, like here and there, like in I think GNOME clocks, I added a little like label,
Mm-hmm.
for example, and just little stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you didn't really use an accessibility the calendar app. Sorry, a calendar app before you started working on GNOME Calendar. Were you just someone who didn't use a calendar like altogether? Do you use it in like a email client or? Like, I personally don't use a calendar. I should, right? I write down when these podcasts are in a text document. Yeah. What about
Yeah, no,
yourself?
I used to never like not use anything. Like I used to just try to remember something and hope to fucking God like I would remember it later.
I did that, and
But
then I had 4 podcasts in 1 week. I was like, I can't do that anymore. Not happening.
oh no. And then like I mean as someone with ADHD, it's or like at least not ADHD like but um a lot of ADHD traits. It's
Mhm.
like I'm not exactly organized and I forget a lot of things and my mind is everywhere. So like
Mhm.
yeah, my keeping stuff in my head didn't really work.
Right.
And every calendar app I tried using was just like too much happening on my face.
Do you want to mention any
Um,
names, or you don't want to mention any projects?
well, there was what's called Windows like calendar apps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, yeah, those. I feel like there's like so many features.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like just too many things going on.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, and like with GNOME Calendar, like I just expected it to be the same thing, so I never really tried it
Mm-hmm.
until I started contributing to it. So like, when I was testing the app, I was actually using it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started realizing that okay, wow, this app is really something like it's actually made for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um so that's why I started using uh GNOME Calendar. And I think I it, it hasn't even been a year. So like all this time I was just trying to keep stuff to my head. Like I was just trying to remember everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that feeling very well.
Yeah.
You also mentioned accessibility in there, and I've got a podcast I'm doing in a couple of weeks from now that I think you might find interesting. There's this guy who hit me up who is a blind game developer, and he's tried out GNOME, and no matter how many times he tries out GNOME, tries out KDE, he always ends up back on Windows. And there's always just a couple of like sticking points that simply don't work for him. I haven't actually had the conversation yet, but I'll let you know when that comes out if you want to check it out for yourself. Because I'm sure there's going to be a
Sure.
lot that can be learnt from that. Because whilst there are a lot of people working on accessibility stuff, it seems like a lot of people that work on it aren't people that need the tooling. And if you are like, oh, it's someone who actually needs it yourself, you're going to have like a different perspective on what needs to be done and sort of like what those pain points are.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like I've um shit. How do I say this? It's like I always found GNOME's accessibility to be bad,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not blaming the developers, but it is the best that we have.
Right.
And like,
Yeah.
and we also have like that screen. What is it called?
Orca?
Orca
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. And like if you turn on the screen reader, the voice is just yikes, it's just like no.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like some bot from like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but once again, I'm not blaming developers. It's just in the unfortunate state that we're in, like,
Yeah.
the lack of contributors and all that. But yeah, like that's one of the reasons why like I try to do my best with accessibility, and that's like, I try to use with a keyboard only.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just that like in many places it's hit or miss. Sometimes I try to bump accessibility related issues and merge requests and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like am thinking of, well, at least I was fixing a lot of accessibility stuff
Mm-hmm.
in GNOME Calendar. But obviously it still has like a long way to go, and it just sucks, honestly, that like we're in that situation where GNOME is the best that we have in
Mm-hmm.
terms of accessibility. And yeah, that's the thing. Like with Windows, I'm pretty sure there are actual blind people, or like, people in need of accessibility who are actually working on the accessibility stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is fair that the person is going back to Windows
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
My understanding is.
But I do
Oh,
appreciate.
go on.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, there's just
Yeah,
delay.
I
That's
do
the
appreciate.
problem.
Ah, yeah, no, but I do appreciate that, like, they're trying GNOME over and over again, or
Mm-hmm.
like KDE, or just Linux in general. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's wonderful.
Mm. My understanding is things used to be a lot better in like, or, not a lot better. Like the focus on accessibility was a lot better back in the early days of Linux, but now a lot of that funding has shifted into other locations, and like considering like how much better Windows is at this point, there's just not as much of a focus on doing it. I know Red Hat a couple of years ago, maybe like a year or two ago, did hire someone specifically to work on GNOME, who I want to say they were blind. I might be mistaking it. I'm not sure what specifically their condition was. But was hired to specifically work on accessibility. I don't know how that ended up going, what they've ended up doing. But the issue is just, you know, there's so much stuff to work on in the FOSS space, and most people doing it are volunteers. And,
Hmm.
if you're a volunteer, you're going to work on the things that you're particularly interested in. And most people aren't interested in working on a calendar. That's why there's hardly any contributors. Most people aren't interested in working on accessibility stuff. They'd rather go work on some like new exciting feature. I don't know, window blur or something. I don't know, something like that. Like something they find personally interesting. And whilst it's great that we've gotten so far with the way that we do things in the FOSS world, there's always going to be those areas which just don't get as much focus. I'm genuinely impressed with how good translations are in the FOSS world. Like that by itself is already impressive, but there's still a lot of areas that are not getting the time and development they need.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say as well, like, I mean, I can't really comment on accessibility in the past,
Mm.
because I wasn't using Linux back then, like
Right.
10 years ago. But at least, like, the only thing like I will assume is that the state of accessibility now and like 10 years before, or even 20 years before, were like, I'd say they're like, it's very possible that they are like very like similar, like, they at least, how do I say this? Like, it didn't have a lot of advancements.
Right.
Like
Yeah, it's basically as good
20
as it
years.
was, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so 20 years ago, it's like, it was considered good,
Mhm.
but fast forward 20 years later, it's not good anymore. Like,
Right.
yeah, that's how I see it.
Mhm.
Because a lot of the accessibility stuff are like very old and they haven't really changed. There is somewhat, and like about the person working on accessibility, his name is Lucas.
Mhm.
Let me send his let me find his like his Mastodon
Oh, yeah,
thing.
awesome. Because I didn't follow up with what was going on at the time when that happened. Um,
Hmm.
Yep. Okay.
This person. Um,
Mhm.
I did talk to him a few times, and he does contribute a lot to like GNOME's accessibility.
Mhm.
It's really nice, and he does work at Red Hat, and yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if I got the details correct, but yeah, it's been a little bit. Um.
Mhm.
But no, that is awesome that is done. But it's like the same problem with really like any problem, like the HDR issue, for example. Like that's been an issue for so long, and it's only just now starting to get dealt with because people are working on other things, and like it's understandable, but it would be nice if more things could be worked on, and like more of these little issues that are not little. What would I call it? Like it's a small problem with a big impact, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
adding in really good keyboard support, for example, like that's a small problem, but the people that will impact is like absolutely massive.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or like good magnifying tools, for example.
Yeah. Or a good like voice screen reader voice thing,
Yeah, that
whatever they're
I,
called.
I I don't know what you do about that problem. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Magic. Look, maybe the AI voice synthesis stuff in some way helps with that, but then you start getting into like weird like licensing stuff, and I don't know where that's gonna end up going because that would solve the problem fairly easily, but
Mhm.
we're already like there's a lot of weird lawsuits that are happening regarding that. It's really unclear like what exactly the state of the tech's going to be and how different jurisdictions are going to handle it. Like what are you going to be allowed to do with it? How are you going to have to disclose it's being used? All of this stuff is still very much being dealt with right now.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's also this other person. Uh, his name is wait, hold on, let me. His name is Matt Campbell.
Hmm.
Uh, and he does a lot of accessibility stuff as well.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know if you've ever like read his articles.
Very possibly.
But yeah, so like, he's working on Access Kit,
Hmm.
and he's also working on Wayland accessibility, like by a crazy amount.
Hmm.
Like here's a link. Um, but yeah, this person is like amazing as well.
Hmm. Updates on my Wayland accessibility work. Current draft protocols. This link here. The provider application and consumer, e.g. screen reader protocols, are now separate. We may still end up going with dbus for the consumer side. Uh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, no, I
sadly
did
that will
check out this one
trigger
earlier,
pro
yes.
bono. Yeah,
Yeah.
that. Yeah, pro bono is gonna make his own I guess quote unquote standard. But
I
oh
don't,
well.
like, of all the, like, right, I can understand concerns with, like, systemd. I don't agree with them, but I can understand them. I don't know how anyone has an issue with dbus. Like, what possible problem could you have with dbus? I get that some people don't like dbus and instead go for dbus broker, but nobody's arguing against the dbus protocol. You might have implementation issues, but what distro is not using dbus besides like the weird like niche ones that a lot of stuff doesn't work on anyway?
Yeah. I'm not sure if dbus is the thing on BSD, so I guess, but
Fair enough.
I
Fair
would
enough.
assume that. Yeah, like I don't know much about BSD, but I guess to some extent that might be a problem.
Hmm.
From uh, as far as I know, Wayland isn't really focused. Like they're not really focused on BSD.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's bad for them, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird. Like the Wayland and BSD stuff is interesting, right? Because Xorg or X11 specifically was developed at a very different time. X11 was developed when Linux didn't exist. Like we were still very much in the true Unix world. BSD was starting to appear. It was still fairly new, but like it was a thing that worked across every Unix system because across all these Unix systems, we all had like some fairly basic agreements, even before POSIX. Like there were some standards that were agreed upon. But now as we're moving into Wayland, you're seeing a lot of the implementations do things that are specific to Linux. And I understand that that's concerning for the BSD guys, but I think they also have to remember that BSD is such a tiny, tiny part of the Linux world, of the Unix world, that, yeah, if GNOME, for example, is going to make some design decision that doesn't out of the box just work on BSD, it would be nice if that was taken into consideration, but at the end of the day, it is such a niche consumer that they sort of have to change what they're doing to more align with what Linux is doing. And that is what's actually happening. Like, the BSD guys were initially fairly apprehensive, but now that, you know, Red Hat's pulling out of Xorg, things are slowly starting to change over on that side. Obviously, FreeBSD's had support for Wayland for a while. OpenBSD actually now has some initial support for Sway. I believe NetBSD might be doing some stuff as well. So it is slowly catching up over there, but they're very much like a good 5-10 years behind where the Linux world is in regards to Wayland support at this point.
Yeah, and there's like pretty sure that systemd doesn't really work on BSD like by default or like so yeah. And Flatpak, obviously that's not. It's a Linux only thing, and they really do not care about BSD as far as I know. Which I mean, I like to be honest, I don't really care about BSD, so yeah, it's whatever for me. It's I'm pretty sure it's like that for most people as well. Like because at some point you gotta like move on and be like, okay, like if we want to advance something, like we're not gonna block ourselves just because like you guys are like 20 years behind, you know? Like we're just gonna move on.
Right. Yeah. Like as I was saying before about, you know, not being able to work on certain things, BSD suffers from the exact same problem where they just don't have the user base and don't have the developer base that exists over on the Linux side. So things are just naturally going to move slower, and especially now as Wayland is moving a lot quicker than it had been before. Obviously, we've had discussions about protocols before, and you've probably seen my videos about issues that have taken multiple years to deal with when it's something basic. Like screen capture, things like that. Or we've all seen the discussions on like screen tearing, for example. Screen tearing is one of my favorites. But even though things are taking a long time to get through those discussions are happening and problems are being dealt with and things are moving really quickly. And I don't know. Here's the thing, right? I don't know when the Linux world is going to be it's almost primarily Wayland. The last time I did a poll, it was like 45-55. I'm curious to see.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
What's 45%? Like, is that Wayland or X11?
I believe Wayland was 45.
Wow. I mean, that's still damn. I'm surprised. I expected like 15%.
To be fair, it's amongst my audience, so maybe it's skewed, but there was like 10,000 responses, so I don't know.
Yeah,
it's the only, like, my numbers are the only ones that exist. I kind of wish that like Fedora did like a widespread poll, or Ubuntu did a widespread poll, just to sort of see what their numbers are actually like. But at least amongst my audience, yeah, it's like 45-55, at least as of like mid last year. I'm curious to see how long it ends up taking for like the mainstream distros to be Wayland only. Not Wayland first, because that's what a lot of them are already doing, but Wayland only. Or at least like Wayland as like at least in the installer, for example, you can choose between having Wayland only or having an option. Like that, I could see that happening first. I know Fedora KDE is doing it. Fedora. I don't know if
Good.
mainline Fedora is doing it. I know there was discussions about doing it. But at least Fedora KDE is doing it.
Yeah, that's good. I hope GNOME does that as well.
I'm so like I don't know when it's gonna like. Imagine like wait until Ubuntu drops X11. Like that's like I don't know when it's gonna happen. It's gonna be in a few years though. Like it's happening. That's the thing. Like if you asked me a couple of years ago, I didn't think this was gonna happen anytime soon. Like there was so many problems that still existed, but like we're getting there now. Like it's actually happening.
Yeah. Finally.
And I don't know if you saw it, but Budgie is aiming to go Wayland only very, very soon. Like, I think Budgie is going to be the first desktop environment that is Wayland only.
Yeah, I'm aware.
I think
I did
Joshua is
talk to the
insane.
developers.
I've talked to him. I think he's a crazy person to do this, going from no Wayland to Wayland only in a year. But sure, if you want to try it, man, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. There's I mean, there's also Cosmic that will be Wayland only,
Right.
or is Wayland only.
Okay, that's fair.
So there is that too.
I actually forgot Cosmic exists. Last week I had the CEO of System 76 on. I forgot about Cosmic.
Wow. Okay.
There we go.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna comment on that, I guess.
But it's fine. It's fine. Carl watches the show. He'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, we're moving real quickly, but the issue with that is there's still a lot of issues to be dealt with. I've talked about multi-window stuff, obviously, but even just on the portal front, there's still like general issues that need to be dealt with. Like on WL Roots, you have the window capture stuff, for example. But and then like on the GNOME front as well, there are obviously issues that are like that still need to be dealt with. I know they are getting things like variable refresh rate working though, which is nice to see finally. But like,
until it got raided by 4chan, and we had to lock the issue and all that. So yeah,
wait, what?
That was... Yeah, it's
Hold on, you have a link to show me this. I have not seen this. What?
I don't think I ever showed you that, but it's like I did make a comment, and then it got into 4chan and people started like, sending like or like just posting death and rape threats at me. So
yep,
like,
that's about right for 4chan.
Yeah, so like I had to lock my Mastodon account, and yeah, it's still locked to this day, and I'm not really sure if I should unlock it or not. But yeah, it wasn't fun. And yeah, like, and the sad part is like, it's not really GNOME's fault, right? Like, if it's being raided, we have to lock it. But a lot of people won't see the fact that it's being locked because of the raid. They're just gonna see that it's locked, and they're gonna be like, "See, GNOME doesn't care." So it's just, no matter what we do, it's just a lose-lose situation, which really sucks for GNOME at least.
Right. No, I
I'm at
do
least
get that.
glad. Yeah, I'm at least glad it's like a lot nicer on KDE's side, or like other, like in other desktop and window managers, because they're not a heavy target like GNOME is. So at least like I'm still happy for them.
I've spoken to KDE devs, and it's not like they don't get any of it. It's just a lot less pronounced than it is with GNOME.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I remember I also witnessed someone, or like not someone, trolling in the KDE wiki. Like they literally copy pasted or something. I'm pretty sure I have an archive somewhere, but it was basically unhinged. That's all I can say.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like the developers, or like at least the sysadmins, had to like revert the changes and all that. It wasn't fun. It really sucked.
Yeah,
but obviously, yeah. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I understand the... How would I say it? I understand why people have a negative perception of GNOME. I don't understand why people go that far with it, right? Like, if you don't like the way that GNOME operates or certain GNOME developers discuss things, that's all well and good. I don't know why people go that far to, like just ignore the project. Like, how difficult is it to just not interact with it, to not go to the issue tracker, to just, like, if you want to rant about it in your, like, private Discord servers. Like, that's fine. Do, like, who cares? But, like, why go directly to the developer's personal accounts and then, like, harass them there? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's. I mean, for them, it's like they just want GNOME to be dead.
Right.
Because apparently, like, they take it as if GNOME murdered their family.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's. Yeah, they just want GNOME to be dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they go harass the developers and all that.
Mm.
It's not fun.
Yeah, the way people, like, I don't know, the way people communicate on the internet is very, very strange, right? Like, most... Now, some of these people might do it, because some of them seem pretty unhinged. But, like, most people wouldn't, like, call for someone's death, like, if they were speaking, like, to face-to-face. Like, that, you just wouldn't do that. Like, that's just not a normal thing to do. Now, as I said, some of these people are very unhinged, so some of them might still do that. But the majority of them, I think, just because they have the ability to say things online and oftentimes not have their name or face attached with it, will just say everything, say anything they want.
Yeah.
And 4chan's especially true for this. Like, people, whenever I get a post on 4chan, they send it to me. I have a fairly thick skin and can just deal with it. It's fun. I usually just have a good laugh at it. But they think I post some of the stuff there myself, which is always funny. Like, they have these, like, crazy theories that Linux YouTubers use 4chan to, like, farm content, which... it's like, sure. If that's what you want to say, I literally go there to, like, ego view myself. I am only there to see when people post about me. That is all. But... 4chan is especially bad for this, where people just say, like, the wildest shit that they don't believe themselves. Like, that's the thing. They are just saying it because they can say it, because it's just like, this is a wild thing to say. Let's see what sort of reaction we're gonna get.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, for me, like, one of the nice things about 4chan is that, like, it's something that is universally agreed to not take them seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just that sometimes it's like, there are racist comments and, like, yeah, just those kinds of comments, or like, death threats and stuff like that, that isn't really fun to look at, even if it's on 4chan. It's at the same time, it makes you wonder, like, if that person really, like, I'm not sure how to say it. It's like, what happened to them to be that way? Like, you know? So, yeah, it's at the same time, I do feel bad whenever like, for them. So, yeah, it's not really fun.
I enjoy it when they go crazy on Reddit, because then I can see their post history. And it's always fun to look. If you just see someone who's really angry, just look back through their post history. Oftentimes, they're just always angry. Like, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
Nothing in their life is fun. Nothing is happiness. Like, you don't see... Like, you never see someone who is, like, hate posting on GNOME, who then their previous post is, hey, look, guys, I just benched 120 kilos. It's a new record. Like, look at my great life. Like, that's not what happens. It's always like, oh, I hate this, I hate that. Like, every single time.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But it sucks for them as well, because they're never happy, so...
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's totally fair. But, you can't worry about everyone. Yeah. It takes too much effort.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's, like, mentally taxing as well,
by
doing that.
For sure. I saw this post that Cassidy made about FlatHub now having over 1 million active users, which is wild. I didn't realize it was that big. Like,
Yeah.
just so you don't have to go find it yourself. 1.6
Yeah.
billion downloads, 2,400 apps, 850 verified apps, a million plus active users. Like, you know, just having that number there is a... You can use that to you can go to a company that has an app, like, hey, we have 1 million users here. Like, that by itself is already a fairly good selling point of the platform.
Yeah. And now, like, FlatHub is, like, they started putting a lot of effort into the documentation and stuff like that, because before, it used to be inside a GitHub wiki, and that was just, like, the SEO, like, you know, Google's, like, search engine optimization is just, like, non-existent and all that. But now that they have their own docs page, it's really nice.
Yeah, I have heard from a couple of developers where it's like, yeah, the user experience for FlatHub is incredible, but the developer side, you know, it needed some work. Like, you could obviously get things on there. There's 2,400 apps, but it wasn't pleasant for them. And if it's not like their priority to get it on FlatHub, then they might just do it somewhere else.
Yeah. It's also that, like, they also added, like, really neat features for developers as well. So they can check how their, like, app metadata and stuff like that. Wait, give me a second. Let me try and find it. Here's a screenshot. And it's like, yeah, it's like at the side, the side panel. It's that, like, it's really cool now. And you can also ask, like, request for a manual review as well. So, like, I'm really happy that they're actually, like, they are putting a lot of work into FlatHub. Yeah, it's just really good.
There was a lot of confusion regarding those guidelines. Now, we are going to talk about what I said in the video, but there was a lot of confusion with, like, when, like, people have seen this picture and they're like, oh, so if it's failing checks, there's going to be a banner on it that says it's failing. Like, no, that's for the developers to see. Like, oh, there's going to be like this thing that's like, oh, if it fails things, it's not going to be allowed in the store. No, nobody said that. Oh, but, like, what if they do it in the future? Then we worry about it in the future. Like, I don't understand, like, why people are just so quick to jump on any single improvement. Like, it's one thing to have actual concerns with it, but can you focus your concerns on the things that it actually says, please? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think the worst, like, thing to worry about is those who are like, oh, FlatHub is adding DRM, and or like, FlatHub is gonna become yet another, like, app store, like Apple App Store, or a Google Play Store. But, like, what they don't realize is that FlatHub it's not a company product. It's a multi-organization effort, including non-profit organizations. So, like, it's a whole different environment that we're talking about, and it's like, can you please do your research and, like, shut the fuck up? It's just, yeah, it's the same way that, like, that people say about GNOME, or GNOME. You know, people are just like, oh, it's Red Hat. It's just Red Hat. And like, I can tell you that as a, like, foundation member, like, as someone who actively, like, contributes to GNOME, like, Red Hat has very little power, like, in many areas. Like, they have very little influence. Well, they have a lot of influence, but at the same time, not in a way where they can build a monopoly out of it. Because, like, just like FlatHub, GNOME is also a multi-organization effort to
Mhm.
a lot of extent. Like it's not just Red Hat that is involved.
Mhm.
In many ways, there's also Free Desktop, there's Purism, there's Endless Foundation, there's I think Collabora as well.
Mhm.
Um, there's there's another Igalia
Mhm.
as well. So like the thing is like Red Hat literally cannot do anything. Like they have to work together. And when we look at a designer, like just a designer team, there I know that one of them is from Red Hat and another one is from Purism.
Mhm.
Um, so like there's also like in many cases where teams have like cross organization, like there are multiple organizations that employ to be in that team as well.
Mhm.
It's That's just how in many ways GNOME is, and obviously there are also people who don't work on the behalf of an employer. They just do it for free.
Mhm.
Like Georges Stavrakas, for example, like he's single-handedly maintaining GNOME Calendar for free. Like he's not employed by anyone.
Mhm.
It's yeah, like unfortunately people just don't like to do research, and yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah. And when you look at it from like a very surface level, I think the reason people say GNOME Red Hat is obviously Red Hat does use GNOME, and then
Mhm.
a lot of the like big faces of like the project, and you know the names we're talking about. Like, no need to send people over there. Like, you know who, like the people who are like those big names that everybody recognizes. A lot of those people are Red Hat employees. So people are like,
Mhm.
oh, if those people are Red Hat employees, they're like they're big names in the project. Well, that must mean that they have like control over what's going on, and they sort of fail to see like the rest of what's going on in the background. Like they are just a small cog in this giant machine.
Yeah, and it's not just that. Like just because someone works at Red Hat, it doesn't mean they're being paid to do that
Also,
work.
that yes.
Um, yeah, like I realized that at least with Red Hat employees, and actually even with Purism, um, no, actually, all the companies working on GNOME is that the developers are very, very passionate.
Mhm.
Um, like you'll see that one, um, Fedora, sorry, not Fedora. I mean that one, like for example, Red Hat employee who's tasked to do something,
Mhm.
but then they're also like volunteering on 20 other GNOME related stuff,
Mhm.
and they're not being paid or anything. It's just like they're genuinely passionate about.
Yep.
It just happens like they just happen to have a job like tasked to work at GNOME, for GNOME,
Mhm.
which I mean I think it's wonderful. Like if someone could pay me to like work on GNOME, I would take it. Like I mean, if I do have the skills, like I would go for it
Mhm.
because I love GNOME. Like I want to work on GNOME and all that.
Mhm.
And like if we look at um like I know at least Tobias Bernard, he works at Purism as far as I know,
Mhm.
and um he designs a lot of icons, and I'm pretty sure that like 95% of them he's not being paid. And yeah, it's just like an example, but there are just there are so many. Actually, there's also one of them, and my God, that whole thing was an absolute disaster.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
Um, so like there is this one issue in GNOME settings where they were um they were thinking about removing like almost entirely the network section of GNOME. Um,
Okay.
because it wasn't being maintained. Let me. Where is it? Hold on. Network. Um, y- I cannot find the issue. You gotta be kidding me. Um, I don't even remember the title of it. I think it's reconsider.
Okay.
No, it's not reconsider.
I'm not cutting any of this out, by the way. This is gonna stay in.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna try to find it at the same time. But yeah, like that's the gist of it is, they were gonna remove like a massive section of the Wi-Fi like related stuff
Okay.
because it wasn't being maintained anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously it was really controversial because a lot of like employers, like including Red Hat and all of them, actually rely on those stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, it was really controversial. At the same time, nobody, like everyone was like, "Oh, but we need that feature," but at the same time, no one was willing to work on it until that one Red Hat employee, like, who actually volunteered to maintain that section of settings.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not being paid at all, but they do work at Red Hat. So like that's just like another example like of someone being very passionate about their like how like about GNOME, which I think it's wonderful, you know. But yeah, like if I can find it, I'll just send a link. But you'll see like it's just gonna be an absolute disaster.
Oh, good.
And
No luck.
sorry?
No luck. He's not gonna find
No
it.
luck.
No luck. Okay. With the whole GNOME is Red Hat thing, I like to just look through people's replies to stuff to just see what they're interested in. I saw you talking back and forth with someone the other day, where they were calling GNOME FSF.
Yeah, that's
I
okay,
actually
what the
no,
fuck?
I love this comment, right? Because that is true about 20 years ago. Because when GNOME started, it was a GNU project. Like the whole GNU object model environment wasn't just a name. Like it started as part of the GNU project.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, it stopped being part of the GNU project, though. That's 4 years ago. I think the problem is there actually was a whole drama there where after they departed from the GNU project, GNU was still listing it as a GNU project up until that 2021. There were multiple email exchanges back and forth, but like, hey, stop listing us as a GNU project. We haven't been for 2 years now, and eventually they stopped doing so. But there's clearly still people out there that think that it is and just haven't like caught up yet.
Yeah, I can't really comment on that. Like I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really know that it was like 4 years ago. I find out it's kind of recent. I thought it was like out of GNU since forever.
Well, at least 4 years ago was when they like publicly departed. I don't know if there was anything before that. But like when they made a big deal about it 4 years ago, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been asking since 2019 to be removed, but they might have been gone before that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Regardless, they're not part of GNU anymore. It's not a thing. Stop trying, like, it's rare that people say it. Usually the Red Hat stuff gets, like, more attention, right? But, like, that you'll still run into these odd people that still don't know that it's not part of GNU.
Yeah. That's very rare, but yeah.
If it was part of... Here's the funny part, right? Like, if GNOME was part of GNU, GNOME would be GNU. Like, it would completely outfund and outdevelop the entirety of the project.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat?
If GNOME was part of GNU, like it would be less that GNOME's part of GNU, even more like GNU's part of GNOME, because the project is just so much bigger than GNU is at this point.
Maybe I'm not sure. Like, because I mean I'm so lost with FSF and GNU. Like
Right.
it's like yeah, when it comes to the Free Software Foundation, like it's just like almost everything makes me ask why. Like why is it like that? Like
Mhm.
who thought that this was a good idea and
Mhm.
things like that. And it's like why is it so unclear?
Mhm.
But like either like maybe I don't know like no, I think GCC, like the compiler,
Mhm.
that is a massive project.
That's a fair point.
Um,
Fair point.
yeah, Grub, that's another massive project as well.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say that
Okay.
GNOME is bigger.
We have two
It
projects.
depends.
That's fair.
But those two projects are like several millions of lines of code, so like they're pretty big,
No, I mean
very
like
big
bigger in
projects.
terms of like the funding and the number of developers in the project, things like that.
Right? Yeah.
Like yeah,
Yeah.
GCC is 15 million lines of code. Yeah, okay, that's a
Yeah. It's not. It's a serious like it is a massive project.
mhm.
Oh, okay. I found the issue.
Oh, you found it.
Finally. Yes,
You've still
that
got.
was the issue.
I thought you'd given up. Okay.
No, no, no. I don't give up.
Okay,
I
so
don't give
reduce the
up.
scope of the network settings. We have maintenance issue with the network settings. They have the most issues out of all the settings panels, and we don't have domain experts available to diagnose and fix issues as they come in. Looking at the issue tracker, it's hard to be confident that the existing network settings actually work. Reducing the scope of the network settings is an obvious solution to this. We could have a more limited set of options which get better testing and don't cover specialist features. For anyone who wants more than that, we can point them to NM Connection Editor. We would therefore need to fix another issue. Okay.
Yeah, like if you scroll down, you'll see like there are a lot of people who are like not really happy with it, which
Mhm.
is fair. But like if you scroll down, you'll see at some point like I did make a comment. Like here's the thing. I wasn't happy that they were like considering that.
Mhm.
Um but in the end, like for me, at least for me, what's more important than features is maintainers' mental health.
Mhm.
And at that time, like when you interviewed
Mhm.
Georges did say like there were times when he wasn't he wasn't being nice to people and all that. That was
I
one of the
see
times.
the energy used to write that message could have been used to fix 3/4 of the bugs.
Yeah, like he does have a point, but
Mhm.
the thing is, like at the time, I'm not sure if that is still the case, but at least at that time, he
Mhm.
was a maintainer of GNOME settings, and
Right.
he was really no, actually, okay, he's not a maintainer anymore, but
Mhm.
before he had the maintainer tag,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, he used to be a maintainer, and at that time, he was beyond burnt out,
Mhm.
and like if you scroll down, you'll see my comment as well. Like I'm literally defending George's
Mhm.
because like it was like I said like okay well sure it sucks for us but it sucks like if we keep those stuff it sucks for like it's worse for George's like mental health and all that,
Right.
so that's why like I was quote unquote in support of it,
Mhm.
but it's yeah I'm just consistently like that, like if even if it's a project I absolutely love
Mhm.
but the maintainer isn't exactly in the healthiest state, I'm gonna like, let them know that like, hey, like it's okay to abandon your project. Like, don't take it the wrong way, but your mental health does matter.
Right.
And yeah, like that's also like around the time when I started talking with Georges.
Mhm.
Um, like I was a fan of Georges for like a really long time, like for a few years,
Mhm.
and he didn't really know who I was. uh, so like yeah, like at that time it was pretty clear that he was burnt out, and
Right.
so I just messaged him. I asked like, "Hey, can I privately message you?" And like, yeah, I I encouraged him to take a break,
Mhm.
which he did. I think it was a week break or something. He did feel better, and like, yeah, that's like, and then we started talking to each other. We became we're pretty good friends now.
That's cool.
Um, but yeah, it's not sadly it's not just George's. It's like many developers and maintainers like that. They're overworked, and like even though like it sucks that the people who rely on those features are affected, but it almost always sucks more for the people maintaining it
Yeah.
if they don't really want to, or like if they're not in the correct mindset, or like they don't have the resources to maintain it. And yeah, it's not really fun. Like it like it's it's really difficult to defend a maintainer's like position, like if that makes sense, like when they're burnt out and they're being rude to some extent.
Right.
So it's like it's also important that we look a little bit further than just their how they're behaving. It's more like everything else as well, like what they're actually going through.
No,
But yeah, like
yeah.
at least yeah, as far as I know, after stepping down from GNOME Settings, I think that Georges has been feeling a lot better now. So it's really nice.
Yeah,
to see that.
There's multiple stages of burnout, right? Like there's the step where you're like, I just don't want to work on this anymore. And then I've talked about this is especially true in some web libraries where people have been working on something for like 3, 4, 5 years, and they're like, you know what? I'm done. They post like a giant manifesto of like how corporations are evil. Like all of these corporations are using it, like this project. They haven't given my project a single cent. I'm done. I'm abandoning this. I'm deleting the entire project. Like, you want to be able to take a break before you get to that point. Like there are some projects where like the dev isn't just burnt out and will come back after a week. They're just burnt out from like open source development and just never want to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. And it just sucks. Like the people who are working on it are like doing it in good faith. Like it's free labor. And then not developer, companies, and I guess not just like companies, they abuse it like to some extent. Like well, it's technically not abusing because the MIT and BSD license are like, oh, do whatever you want essentially, but it's like they don't fund the the development because for them it's just like whatever, like I can make $1 million profit, so why, like who cares about them?
Yeah.
um yeah, but it's not just the companies. To a large extent it's just the overall user base, just in another way, where instead of money or like financial contributions, it's more like in issue trackers or whatever, like directly contacting the developers and saying that like you know trying to be just being entitled. It's yeah, it just sucks. Like that's all I can say.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
no, I
I
get what you're
felt a
saying.
lot like that.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's yeah, no, yeah, what I meant to say, it's like upstream developers are generally like overworked. That's just how I see it. And that's one of the reasons why like I become very like defensive when it comes to like downstream packaging and stuff like that, because like us upstream maintainers already have like so many things to worry about, and by the fact that you're like you guys are packaging this app, like my app, the wrong way now, it's like you're adding more fuel to the fire, and it's just like that's like what happened with bottles as well. Like at least for me, like I got burnt out, like Georgian's level burnt out from the. I mean, you probably noticed it, and
Yeah, no, I've read the issue tracker.
yeah, I was really tired of being too nice. Like I remember, like it wasn't just in issue trackers; it was on Discord as well. People, it was just like consistently like, oh, I have this problem, and then um then you ask, is if like we didn't. It was to the point where like we weren't asking what package they were using. We were asking if they were using the RPM because that's just how bad it got. Like
Yeah.
it was just broken. Um, and like I just got really tired of like dealing with all that, and yeah, I mean, I lashed out, but I mean, if I I did reread it like after I left bottles, and I still stand by everything I said. Um, but yeah, it's like one thing I can tell you is that the original comments were 10 times worse. Um, yeah, no, probably 10 times is an understatement. That's how much I would say. Um, someone was actually helping me like make it sound more neutral.
Right.
Um, because like I knew that I was really like I was burnt out, and like that's just something that I realized, but I didn't really had the guts. I didn't really have the guts to like leave the project. And yeah, so like I just asked that person like, oh, can you help me like write this in a way that isn't like rude. Um, but yeah, it's that whole thing was a mess. And now, to be fair, I'm not saying that like Fedora as a whole is bad. Like Fedora is still a wonderful community. Like we look at the website team or the design team, like they're wonderful people. It's just like that was the like that one time when I just had a terrible experience with Fedora, as
Right.
I guess we could say as an organization. But yeah, it's but still, like I still learned a lot from Fedora. I still participated as much as I could, and a lot of contributors were very welcoming. And I mean, there are also a lot of people that I really, really like. And yeah, but still, like it's not. It's just like sometimes I do think like even if a maintainer is kind of an asshole, like I try to like be respectful,
Right.
like be like, okay, well, sure, you may have a bad take, and like you have a bad take. I'm just gonna respect it and not, you know, I don't want to cause any problems to you. Um, yeah, it's like people are like, oh yeah, like you just want everything to be a flatback, which is like, I mean, yeah, sure, like that is to some extent true, but like if a maintainer doesn't want to make turn it into a flat pack, then I'm just gonna respect that. Like
Right.
I'm gonna be like, hey, if you want to snap, go for it. Like you're allowed to use inferior platforms, but like go for it.
Well,
I don't want to like be an ass to you.
speaking of snaps, we saw a very similar case happen with the Steam Snap, where some Valve devs were like, "Can you stop using this thing? It's just broken. Like we
Yeah.
can't fix it. Like it's broken. Go blame Canonical for it being broke. Like tell them about. Like we are not maintaining this. Like it's not our problem."
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's. I think it's more of the unfortunate state, like because the Steam Flatpak used to be really, really bad, like unusably bad. Um, and it was just a matter of time that it got better and actually usable. Like even to the point that I actually use it on a daily basis. Like I use the Steam Flatpak daily now. Um, but like at least with Snap, like they recently started the Steam Snap, so I do understand why it's like completely broken, and I think that they will fix it. Like it will improve as time goes on. But at the same time, it's like, I would just like I would tell the employees, like the Valve employees, to like tell Canonical, like go directly tell Canonical to stop doing it. Tell them to drop the packaging entirely. Um, but yeah, like, but yeah, it must really suck for the developers.
Well, it was
Who have to deal with Snap.
the funny part is apparently some internal Valve developers were using the Snap and didn't realize it. because it also did like package redirection, which is a thing Canonical likes to do. You think you install the apt, but it actually installs the snap. Which makes sense for Firefox, because the Firefox snap is in a fairly good state. But the Steam snap is not in that state. Like, that's... Yeah, that shouldn't be getting done. But where I was getting at here is, after I'm done with this, I've got another video I'm going to do, talking about, like, where you should be reporting bugs. Like, talking about upstream and downstream bug trackers, how to decide where to actually go with the bug report. Because... people, this is especially true I see on, like, the Debian bug tracker, for example. People say, well, users will go to, like, the distro bug tracker, and that's not what's gonna happen. Like, your experience with Bottles is a great example with this. People on Fedora were going to the Bottles developers with problems with Bottles. They weren't going to the Fedora bug tracker. I'm sure some of them were, without a doubt. But a lot of other people were like, oh, I'm running Bottles. I'm going to be a good contributor. I'm going to go directly to the project and tell them about the problem so they can fix the problem. But it wasn't issues that you could deal with because it was entirely issues with the packaging. And that's true for that one. It's going to be it's going to be very true. So apparently there's some work to get a Hyperland package on Debian. And we both know that Debian, by the end of its life cycle, is about 2 years out of date. So I have no doubt that there will be 2-year-old bug reports being made on the project if that ends up actually happening. People don't go just to the distro bug tracker. That's not a thing that happens.
Yeah, no, that's not true at all. Like, the worst part is that a lot of those distros, they display it so badly. Like, if you look at Fedora, at least on Fedora's side, they use Bugzilla. No one in their right mind wants to use Bugzilla. Like, you must be fucking crazy, like, if you're gonna use Bugzilla. And let me tell you that, like, there are people who dislike, or, like, you know, who just don't want to deal with Bugzilla, or, like, the issue trackers, like, downstream issue tracking side. So they will willingly, I mean, report to upstream because it's just easier. Like, GNOME uses GitLab. GitLab is just easier to use. So why not open it in GitLab and in GNOME GitLab, like, you know, to upstream, and they'll probably, like, deal with it later. But you know, that's, like, the problem. Like, it's not just the fact that users are reporting upstream, it's also that reporting downstream is, in many cases, really difficult.
Yeah.
And this is, like, one of the reasons why, like, I just love NixOS. Is, like, NixOS, they did a wonderful job at, like, targeting their, like, because their target audience is like really, really technical users.
Sure. Yeah. That's a nice way to put
those
it.
those technical users are, like, they understand the distribution model. So they know that, okay, if there's an issue with a Nix package, they're going to report it to downstream. And that is very much, like, that is one of the few cases where downstream distros saying that, like, users will report it downstream first is, like, true. But when we look at Fedora, like, at least with Fedora or, like, Ubuntu, Fedora and Ubuntu, for example, it's quite, like, their target audience is the average person, basically, or the average developer, like, you know, people who don't really understand the distribution model. And because of that, like, for them, they're gonna assume that it's just like iOS or macOS or Windows, where everything is directly from developers, when it is not true at all. And it's just like, it used to be true at the time, but Fedora, like, you know, now that we're trying to target the average user, like, the distribution model doesn't really work anymore. For NixOS, it does, because the target audience is the people, like, who do know the distribution model. Same thing with Gentoo. Same thing with Arch. to some extent.
Yeah,
The only
Arch is a
difference is
weird
that
one.
Arch, yeah, like Arch is targeted for smart people,
But then you
but
have
a lot of
Endeavor.
the
That's the problem. And Arco. And Garuda.
well, it's not really. Yeah, yeah, that is definitely a problem. Oh yeah, don't get me started on Manjaro.
Yeah.
There's, but it's not just that. Well, I mean, well, with Arch, it's a little bit of a special case because, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, a large chunk of the Arch community is filled with idiots who don't understand how anything works, really.
Yep.
Um, that's why, like, for me, that's like one of the things of like with at least with bottles that
Mhm.
I was really hesitant because I understand Arches. Like, I don't want to inconvenience the Arch developers because, like, they are targeting advanced users
Mhm.
and which are expected to understand the distribution model. So, like, I don't want to interfere with that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like half the user base is filled with morons. It's like, bruh, it's just a bruh. Like, I don't know. I just, yeah, it's just difficult to decide.
Mhm.
But yeah, like, at least with Fedora and Ubuntu side, I feel like the distribution model, like, it's like, at least with Ubuntu, like, I don't like snaps,
Mhm.
but you know, at least with snaps, it's upstream first.
Right.
Like, in many cases, it's expected that the upstream developers actually package it for Snap.
Mhm.
But on Fedora, it's not really that. Like, you have RPM, like you have Fedora repos, which is 100% downstream.
Mhm.
Um, but then you also have Fedora Flatpaks, which
Mhm.
is, well, which is, I mean, the way I see it is a glorified distribution package. Sorry, distribution repo,
It's just a
because
repackaged
it's still,
RPM. That's all it is.
yeah,
They're just built off the Fedora RPMs.
yeah, exactly. And it's just, so, like, you still share the same problem, like almost the same problem where
Mhm.
it's downstream. Like, there is still a middle person.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, like, you could still run into problems and stuff like that. It's just, that's like, it's just a problem that I have with Fedora, and I
Mhm.
really wish that they would just completely push FlatHub.
They're slowly getting there. Like, they're better than they were with it. Where they, like... I remember... This was, like, really stupid when I found out. Where they said you activated flatpaks and then, like, hid the fact that it was using theirs instead of FlatHub, and, like, it showed it in a really weird way where it, like, sort of made you think it was FlatHub, but it really wasn't. I don't remember exactly how they displayed it, but it was really dumb.
Oh, it was. I mean, it wasn't just dumb. That is an understatement. It was a lot worse than that. Um, it was some like whitelist thing.
Mm.
Wait, let me try to find it. Oops. Hmm. I think, yeah, it's that. Okay, I sent a link.
Yes, yes, this
So
is it.
yeah, yeah. They really denied everything by default except 7 packages or something.
Hmm.
It's, well, 7 apps. And, like, yeah, it was. I'm telling you, like, there are some people like in the Fedora community that are just like, it's just like talking to a brick wall.
Hmm.
Um, I remember like some of them were saying, "Oh, well, using FlatHub is a legal problem and all of that." Yet they literally have fucking Minecraft enabled,
Hmm.
or Teams, Discord, and all that. Like, Zoom. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you guys are literally allowing those apps and then saying that it's a legal risk. Like,
Hmm.
be consistent. But yeah, it's and like that was at the time when Discord wasn't even official.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's, yeah.
Right.
s- yeah, it was just worse. But I'm glad they got rid of that. Now it's a lot better. But it still kind of sucks in my opinion
Mhm.
because Fedora Flatpaks is prioritized and you are getting a subpar experience,
Mhm.
which is, well, yeah, they're just repeating the same distro problem, middle person thing. But yeah, downstreams being downstreams.
Fedora's a weird
It's
distro.
funny though
Go,
because
go on. Yep.
yeah, it's not just like a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, but it's just GNOME that has this problem where it's just with KDE it's all fine. Let me I mean
Yeah,
you
for
did
sure.
interview uh well no, it's actually not just GNOME. It's in many cases it's also KDE.
Yeah, no, I'm well
Um
aware. Yeah, no, that's what I'm
okay.
laughing.
Right, but it's not just KDE either.
Mm,
It's also in RustyCL,
mm,
like Rusticle.
mm.
Um like Carol, like he keeps telling like he often goes in rants and says like, Debian and Ubuntu developers are so painful to work with because they just do it wrong.
Mm.
And oh, this reminds this reminds me of something.
Okay, what do we have?
Like someone from GNOME said something like it was absolute fire. Oh, hold on. Oh, what's his name again? Oh, I cannot remember. Uh, okay, there we go.
I know.
Oh man, so that was about fractal
Alexander.
packaging.
Um,
Sorry.
I'm just trying to. I don't think I recognize the name.
He's one of the Fractal developers, like Fractal, the Matrix client for GNOME.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's written in Rust, and Debian, as far as I know, they want to do their own thing with Rust, and so is Fedora and I guess Ubuntu as well. It's not like because Rust has its own way of packaging or whatever it is,
Mhm.
which Fedora and well, not just Fedora, but in this case Debian is altering. Like they're doing completely differently.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and Alexander, like here, he was just like, I'm just glad that Debian people are like suffering from it because like he doesn't want to deal with it, and that's
Yeah.
completely fair.
The
To be
actual quote for anyone
fair.
listening is, "I'm so glad Debian is facing such difficulties packaging it. You have no idea. Now, since our intention was clearly stated at the beginning, you failed to understand it and kept debating this. As far as I'm concerned, this was the last message I will see from you. Good day, sir." That's such a good comment.
Yeah, it's absolute fire. But yeah, it's like yeah, it's not just GNOME. Like, let me tell you that it's Rustical is one of them, and I think there's this old X screensaver thing as
Mhm.
well.
Is it
Uh,
the Debian deleting
yeah,
the thing saying, "Hey, yes, I did a video on this." Where JWZ was like, "Hey, Debian, please stop shipping an outdated version," and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna delete the message."
yeah, it's I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
it's
is.
not just
Yeah.
GNOME that is suffering from it. It's like many upstream developers. The only difference is that with GNOME, like we're just very vocal.
Mhm.
Um, and that's one of the things I like about GNOME is that like we're very vocal.
Mhm.
um, it's the same thing with like you look at it theming stuff. There's just Tobias Bernard like going ham and being like, "Yo, stop theming our apps distros. You guys are just doing it wrong."
Mhm.
Um, which funnily enough, like this is like another case where people are just like, "Oh, that's just GNOME. That's just GNOME." No, it's with KDE as well. Let me tell
Mhm.
you this. It's with Qt as well,
Mhm.
or Qt. Um, like, oh man, I know if you've ever heard of QGNOME platform.
Yes. Yes, I'm aware of QGNOME platform. Oh.
Yeah, it's that wasn't. I literally fought for my life to stop to ask the developers to stop um needlessly modifying Qt apps or like the theming part
Mhm.
of Qt, and it was such a disaster. But I'm glad like we did ended up like convince them.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think that the situation is gonna get a lot better from now on.
So for anyone who doesn't know, GNOME platform, the way that I understand it is it's basically a bridge between the GNOME settings and Qt apps, where it converts a lot of those GNOME settings into something that makes sense for Qt apps and basically attempts to make the theming look consistent.
Yeah.
Attempts.
As far the theming is done by Adwaita Qt.
Mhm.
GNOME platform is just the other stuff like the
Okay,
window
right. The
decoration
settings, yeah.
stuff
Okay,
and
yep,
cursor.
yep. Okay.
Yeah, exactly, the settings. I guess like with GNOME platform, it wasn't that big of a deal. My bad. It was mainly with Adwaita Qt.
Mhm.
And have you ever seen the examples I provided before and all that?
I don't know. If you have them on
Okay, let me
hand, yeah,
send.
let me know.
Yeah, hold on. I actually wrote a blog, like that's literally why it got
Where
pretty
Fedora links can
known.
improve. That's a great title.
Oh yeah, I
Oh!
did explain a lot.
Oh, what the hell? That looks off.
Yeah, that's it. That's a problem with theming. Like, it's not just GTK theming; it's theming in general. The moment that you change the behavior,
Mhm.
you're gonna run into issues at some point.
Mhm.
With Qt, it might be a little bit less than GTK, but in either case, like you are gonna run into issues. Qt, like even though it has quote unquote official theming,
Mhm.
support or whatever you want to say it still has its own sets of problems where it maybe it's not a technology itself, it's just the people working on it.
Mhm.
And yeah, like it's just but yeah, like at least for that, I was fighting for my life. Actually, let me find the issue.
Okay.
This one, oh my god, like it just went on and on. Oh my god, it wasn't a fun time.
Reconsider use of Adwaita Qt. Okay. We've received complaints from many users about the Adwaita Qt theme breaking apps. Okay. Oh, and
The
links to your
examples is from
article.
my
Yeah,
blog.
okay, yep.
Yeah.
Nowadays, GNOME has been heavily discouraging custom themes. Yep, stop theme my app. Upstream developers do not test their applications with Adwaita Qt. It's good for Adwaita Qt to remain available, but I'm no longer confident there's appropriate... Wait, it was the default. Oh, I
That's on
see the issue.
Fedora. Yeah. Yeah, that was on Fedora, not on GNOME.
Right. No,
GNOME
I get that.
doesn't touch Qt at all.
Sure.
It's Fedora that used to do it.
Right.
Um, and it would break a lot of Qt apps. And unfortunately, because like people are like how do I say this?
This is not really Adwaita
Like
Qt fault, and I also don't expect many people use KDE core apps on GNOME.
no, wait, hold on. Like what I meant is like sorry.
Caden
Like
Live.
Fedora, Fedora in many ways is like known or like understood to
Mhm.
be stock GNOME.
Right.
Like yeah, with a few differences, like well, instead of Epiphany, it's Firefox and
Mhm.
some differences like that.
Mhm.
But the way that people view it is stock GNOME essentially,
Right.
and having something subtle like Adwaita Qt, people would assume that it is a GNOME issue, and
Right.
there are multiple examples where people thought that it was GNOME fucking up the apps, but
Right.
that wasn't the case. It was actually Fedora. So like, I mean, if you read the comments, like you'll see that I've explained that.
Mhm.
I think multiple times, and it's just like it was just I was just face palming, like literally face palming a few times.
Mhm.
It's yeah, it's uh yeah, like at some point I got tired of it and I stopped responding
Mhm.
because I didn't think it was going anywhere. But if you scroll like almost all the way down, you'll see like there's actually let me send a link. Or the direct link. Starting from this comment, you'll see the guy like Michael Catanzaro.
Yes. Yep.
Sorry for like yeah.
No, I think that's
Um
probably close.
he yeah, he he posted like a million examples like below, like at least in that comment I sent, and it was yet another reason why like it's not a good idea like
Mm-hmm.
to ship Adwaita Qt. And even Alan Day as well did the same.
Mm-hmm.
And like yeah, it's pretty obvious at this point that like we shouldn't be theming those cute apps.
Yep.
Because it was all a mess. But yeah, it's I mean, yeah, you can see like I was fighting for my life. I was just like just fighting
How
really hard.
I don't even know how that happens. I see the picture of Black Chocobo, and there's like a checkbox that has like 2 check elements. I don't even know how you break the theme that badly.
It's how do I see it? Well, first of all, it's like themes
Mm,
are really really fragile.
right.
Um so not only like let's say even for a checkbox, like if you change the style,
Mm-hmm.
at least I mean let's say with CSS like um let's say like it's color blue
Mm-hmm.
in version 1, and then like there's a custom theme like a third party theme that changes from blue to red,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe changes a little bit the size of that checkbox,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next version it makes it a little bit bigger.
Mm,
Well, if it's a relative size, like it's gonna interfere, it's gonna like there's gonna have a lot of problems
mm-hmm.
that um yeah.
Right.
And that's like yeah, that's very much like what I meant by it's not just a GTK problem, it's just a theming thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a downside of theming in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, it's it's and I feel like I don't think that it was broken initially. It's just like as we started updating apps, as cute like at least the KD stuff became more and more robust,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also Kirigami now. Um, in case now, I'm sure that nobody knows what Kirigami is. It's essentially libadwaita for KDE. Um, you get
What?
mobile related widgets. Wait, sorry.
I've not. Yeah, no, I didn't know about that. Okay.
Yeah, nobody knows. Hold on, let me send a link if I
Huh.
can freaking find one.
Kirigami UI framework build beautiful apps that run on computers,
It's
phones, TVs, everything else.
hold on. This I mean, there's an app specifically for that. It's called Kirigami Gallery,
Okay.
and it's just like it's just like an app where you can test, you can you can experiment
Mm-hmm.
with the library, or
Mm-hmm.
like with the widgets. Um, it's a my bad. It's a demo app essentially
Right. Right.
for Kirigami, but though that's a KD thing, and that's like you know we run into this similar problem with libadwaita where a lot of cute themes are made for cute, but they're not made for Kirigami, and then now that there's gonna have a lot of custom widgets for Kirigami itself,
Mm-hmm.
a lot a lot of themes will be behind and all that. It's so like that's why it just in general like distros shouldn't be theming, or they should just ship the original like whatever is provided by the distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, by the desktop, so that like it breaks as less as possible.
Right.
Whether it's Plasma or it's GNOME or another like desktop environment, it's just better to keep it at default.
Yeah, but then how do you justify 100 other distros existing, which their only change is having a different theme?
Well, I guess it's a good point.
I've said before that a lot of the distros that exist are basically just glorified install scripts.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
it's just a config file packages an ISO basically.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
We it doesn't we shouldn't like it shouldn't be that way. It's one of the reasons why I'm very like interested in vanilla OS.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I mean I'm saying this as a moderator of the server, but like it is but like I'm actually interested in it because like it does things differently, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but just today,
Mhm.
at least January 30, there's the beta release came out, and like I promise you, I didn't have this plan.
No, you can chill it. It's fine. Go
um,
ahead.
um, but yeah, like in January, like today, we had like beta release, which I made almost no contribution. Let me be clear about it. Um, but like there's a lot of interesting stuff. Like one of them is being able to install Android APKs, and
That's
yeah,
cool.
like we also remove sudo. Um, and we're gonna use like we recommend users to use pkexec directly. Like we're making a lot of changes, and by we I mean them, because like again I didn't really help much.
Uh-huh.
Um, and like that's one of the reasons why like I'm fine with vanilla OS, because it's not yet another glorified install script. It actually does different stuff.
Vanilla OS is one of like I don't like talking about distros on my channel. I know like there's a lot of people that like these 20-minute distro videos like, "Oh, this distro is running GNOME. It has this theme, it has these wallpapers." But Vanilla OS actually is a different distro. Like
Yeah.
Fedora is a different distro, Arch is a different distro, Gentoo is a different distro, and even though Vanilla OS is based on a distro that already exists, it takes that and goes so far away from it that it is its own
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah. That's exactly why like I'm very much interested in vanilla OS or like Fedora,
Mm-hmm.
even Arch to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's or NixOS. It's oh my god,
Oh yeah,
NixOS.
you can't.
This
Yeah, of
gets
course,
me.
NixOS is a different thing as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
can't forget them. They'll get very angry about it.
yeah, never. Yeah, never forget NixOS.
I'll do my NixOS video sometime. I've been saying that for about 3 years.
Y- Soon TM
Yeah, exactly.
trademark.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, there's yeah, and where was I going? Yeah, that's the like. I don't know why no one or like Katie doesn't really talk about Kirigami.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a like wonderful project. Like I didn't really I don't really keep track of it, but I do think that's like a good thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really wish that they would actually like make it more public or like make it more uh obvious and actually I guess market it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that GNOME is doing with libadawada.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which also at least I mean it's not that bad with KD because like no one knows about Kirigami, but with libadawada like people always think that GTK is a mobile toolkit, like every button is huge and all that, but it's the same kinds of people who just hate
Mm-hmm.
like who have no idea how like any of this works or like how it is, um because um like you'd be surprised how different libadawada is to GTK nowadays, like how separate it is. Like it's to the point where a GTK app looks more in um what's the word it looks more out of oh fuck, I can't think of the correct word. um it's um I can't think of the correct word, but what I meant what I want to at least try to say is that GTK apps look more like they fit better
Mm-hmm.
in non-GNOME desktops than GNOME itself,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. That's how far we went with libadawada.
I'm trying to
And
find a demo app that doesn't use libadawada, but I'm not seeing one.
that doesn't GTK demo.
Is that?
I
Is
think
that?
that's I think that's from the Flatpak night sorry, GNOME nightly
Okay,
remote
I was just
flat
searching for the wrong things. Sweet. Okay. Um.
let me send the link.
Yes, if you can do that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll see like how to install or add the remote.
Oh, I thought it was just gonna be a screenshot there. Okay, I'm not gonna do it right now.
Oh, I can. Oh, my bad. Okay, I can.
Yeah,
send
if you have a
screenshot.
screenshot, yeah, that'll be awesome.
To be fair, like the buttons of GTK demo are still like huge,
Sure.
but that's optional. Like, there is like that's like a normal. It looks exactly like a GTK 3 app. If we,
Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean.
hold on, there's, oh, what is his name? The BitTorrent client transmission. That app, it's a GTK4 app, but it looks exactly like, you know, a normal desktop app, at least a traditional desktop app. I haven't installed. Give me a second. Let me just send a screenshot.
Yeah, okay. The screenshot on their website is from the macOS version.
Oh no.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's a GTK4 app. It looks like a desktop app, and you know it has a menu bar as well. Like, it's like, yeah, that's basically GTK4. It's like the point of libadwaita was to make it comply with GNOME's like human interface guidelines, whereas GTK was meant to be a generic purpose toolkit like for Windows and Mac OS, and you know, not just Linux as well, but everything else. And like one of the problems, at least back then, was that a lot of the widgets were focused on GNOME.
Right.
But they were inside a general purpose toolkit, which like it wasn't nice. Like it wasn't the ideal solution, which is why libadwaita exists. And that's also why Kirigami exists, because like a lot of the widgets, like Qt widgets, will only be used on Plasma.
Right.
At least that's so like, yeah, that's why Kirigami and libadwaita exist. I'm still glad that GTK is closer to a general purpose toolkit now. So like, yeah, it's but it also makes it look less fitting in GNOME than any other desktop, which is quite ironic. Ironic in my opinion, but yeah.
Now it's interesting to hear because a lot of people would like just describe GTK nowadays as, you know, the GNOME toolkit, basically. But hearing that and seeing the screenshots here, that it's still very clearly like a distinct. Obviously, it's made by GNOME developers, very much so. It's not like it's just completely separate thing, but it's still very much like a generic toolkit.
Yeah, exactly. Which is good. Like, now it's only transmission that I know, like that is using that traditional UI in the GTK app, GTK4 app. But I think that GIMP and Inkscape will do the same thing. Like, it's gonna be
15 years.
the same UI.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same UI, but in GTK4 essentially, and that's yeah.
Yeah, there is obviously a like I've played around with the GTK 3 version of GIMP, which is hilarious that they're still just doing GTK 3. And obviously things are different because, you know, the styling of a GTK 3 button, for example, is different from GTK 2, but it still feels like the same application. And I would not be surprised if the same is true when they eventually do GTK 4 or jump to GTK 5 or whatever they end up doing, like whenever they decide to change toolkit again.
Yeah. There's also yeah, it's hold on. It's also it's not just like shit, I forgot what I was gonna say. Well, rip. Let's see. Yeah, no. I mean, like, at least for the fat, like the big buttons, that can like you can kind of still do it on GTK4, and you can see from the GTK4 like demo app
Mm-hmm.
that it is still big buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's also worth knowing that the legacy, wow, traditional, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, UI is still very much possible
Mm-hmm.
on GTK4.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
It's like, yeah, I think that's good. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
there's and what one thing that transmission like one thing that I learned
Mm-hmm.
in transmission, at least when I tried transmission, is that the GTK file picker is actually different on GNOME than on like the stock GTK4 dialog
Mm.
is different to the GTK dialog on GNOME. It's because like the GTK dialog on GNOME is it's just like some difference, like it's just some like text like style differences to make it look like libadwaita,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not exactly libadwaita itself. Like there still needs to be a lot of work put into uh the file picker at least.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, hold on, let me send you a screenshot.
Okay.
So like that's how it looks like on GNOME. Like I guess we could say the GNOME file picker, and
Sure. Yep. Okay.
then the GTK file picker looks looks like this. So you can
Mm.
see like
Yeah. No.
even like even it
Yeah.
yeah, like even the GTK file picker has that small title bar, and you know it is still like a desktop or like a traditional UI,
Mm-hmm.
which I to be fair, to be honest, I did find it pretty cool, even though it's just like tiny detail that nobody cares and all, but
Mm-hmm.
still.
Hmm. Well, one of the nice things about nowadays with the file picker stuff is we do have the file the file portal. What's the portal for dealing with the the file picker?
The file chooser portal.
That one. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Because for a long time that was just not a thing. So if you used
Hmm.
KDE, you just got the GTK file picker and something like Firefox, which was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's yeah. I'm glad that we have Portal. It's one of the best things we that ever happened to Linux.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's obviously it's George's carrying like always.
Yep. Yep.
I really wonder, like, what would have happened if he didn't exist? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so many things wouldn't be there. Like, let's not forget about thumbnails in the file picker. That was from George's as well. So, like, he's just a saint.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Like, I need to fanboy this guy. He's just wonderful.
Well, it sort of
Um,
goes back to, I'm sure you've heard people say, oh, if you don't like this thing, just go fork the repo. Or like with Xorg, I've been seeing people say, oh, when Red Hat pulls out, I'm just going to go develop Xorg myself. Like, are you now? Are you? Go ahead. Please do. Like,
hell
no, you're
yes.
not going to do that. Because if you were, you'd already be doing it. And the same thing with like, the work that Georges is doing, I don't know if someone would have filled his place. That's the thing.
No, for sure no.
I'm sure people would
Like,
eventually do it at some point, maybe, but it wouldn't have happened when it happened.
yeah. I mean, GNOME Calendar would be gone and my life would be over. That's for sure. If he wasn't here, and yeah, it's. I mean, he did. He keeps saying that like if he's not maintaining GNOME Calendar anymore, like I'd be the next maintainer, like the next in line.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, if that ever happens, the next day it's gonna be a deprecation like note because there's no way I will maintain a massive app like GNOME Calendar.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's. I just like I cannot fathom, like I do not understand
Mhm.
how George is like how he can maintain GNOME Calendar and then XCG Desktop Portal, and then he also does other stuff like he's heavily involved in OBS Studio,
Mhm.
and then he also brought the file picker, sorry, the thumbnails in the file picker and all that, and which required several rewrites, as far as I know. It's This guy is just a saint.
Mhm.
I can't. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fair. I agree. Like, he does incredible work. There are some
Yeah,
devs out there who, like, there's a lot of devs who will work on one project, but there are a handful of them out there who just want to make everything better. Like, Neil Gomp is also a really good example of this. Like, he
yeah,
just shows up. Like, I will just be like, oh, look at this cool project. I look at the contributor list, and it's just Neil Gomp. They're like, why are you here? What are you doing here? Why are you everywhere?
yeah. It's like that. Kind of the same with GNOME. At least,
Mhm.
like, there are some people who randomly message me sometimes for like, Skelly jump scare, for example. Um, because like or like anything Flatpak or GNOME, like
Mhm.
you're just gonna see me in the contributors list,
Mhm.
and they're just gonna be like, "Oh, Skelly jump scare" or "Skelly spotted." It's it's funny. It's nice. Like
Mhm.
it is a nice feeling that people do recognize you and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, it's still like wonderful that we have people like Georges and Neil Gampa and
Mhm.
Oro as well.
Sure, sure.
Um, and yeah, it's yeah. I would like to like mention other people as well, but it's just that they don't do it very publicly because they don't want to be harassed by others.
Sure.
So like it's fair.
You know,
Um,
I do spot a lot of like names that seem like they're reoccurring across various different things. Like that I just don't hear anything from. Like they're just like they don't have a big social media presence or anything like that. They just sort of like do their thing, which is probably for the best,
yeah,
really.
yeah, it is. It is.
Like you don't need to be getting into fights with people on Mastodon like that. Just go develop stuff. If that's the thing you want to do, go develop stuff. Go outside, have like spend time with people in the real world. Just never interact with
Yeah,
anyone. Just don't do it. It's not worth it.
yeah. Or like not just to argue on Mastodon, just being very like just being what's called. I guess I don't like saying the word internet famous, but I guess that's the best way to say it.
Hmm.
Like the moment you're internet famous, it's like you're done for.
Yeah.
And I know this from experience because like 4chan is a thing
Hmm.
and well, Matrix is a thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
uh,
Just don't do it. Not worth it.
yeah.
Find something
Yeah,
else to do.
exactly. Yeah. But interestingly though, like there are a lot of, there's this one person I'm friends with,
Hmm.
like he's I mean, I'm not gonna say his name because like I don't want him to be harassed.
Hmm.
Um he recently got, actually I think when was it? Like I think a year ago or something. But he was accepted to be a GNOME Foundation member
Hmm.
uh he- at 15 years old. Like he was 15. And it's like that's one of the things I really love about GNOME. It's just like there's a wide, it's actually inclusive. Like it is not just like as others would say, like, oh, it is just not just like woke stuff.
Hmm.
um but like it is like there's a wide variety of people with different backgrounds with different opinions that we actually come together and like we actually contribute to the project.
Hmm.
And man, it's not, obviously it's not just GNOME, it's KDE as well. Like
Hmm.
I guess Linux as well,
Hmm.
Linux kernel. As far as I know, there was the youngest, or like age, or what? How do I say this? Like the person, like I'm not sure if you're aware, there was a 6-year-old girl who actually
yes.
contributed to the Linux kernel.
I
Yeah.
did see that. Yeah, modifying with the documentation.
Yeah, or something like that. It's absolutely crazy, and it's just it's wonderful to see like people from different ages, different places, and all that actually coming together.
Yeah.
Except for chat and Hacker News. Except those kinds of people for Onyx comment section. Oh my god.
Hacker News is a really weird one, right? Like, because half the time it'll be, like a well-informed discussion, and then it just goes completely off the rails. For Onyx, I don't think they have rails. For Onyx just goes wherever. Like, the first comment will usually be like, hey, this is a cool thing. And then it's just like, yeah, let's go this direction instead. Focus on something entirely random that has nothing to do with what we're actually talking about.
Yeah, and let's just trash the project at the same time while we're at it. Yeah, it's... I remember like recently, the FSF added a code of conduct on one of their projects.
GCC?
I think it was Glibc.
Or glibc, maybe.
I don't remember.
One of the two. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you look at the comment section, you'll just find random people say that, oh, okay, I'm not gonna contribute to that project anymore. And I fucking bet you they've never contributed to the project. Like, I fucking bet you it's always like that. Like,
yep, it was glibc.
The people who just yeah, they just say things, but they never actually did it to begin with.
Well, the thing is, their code of conduct isn't even like that crazy. Like, there are some projects, there are some code of conducts I do have some like severe disagreements with, but like this one is just like, don't be an asshole. That's pretty much what it is. It's just don't be an asshole in a lot more words.
Out of curiosity, which code of conduct do you disagree with? Because
I have concerns with the contributor covenant. I don't go as crazy with it as some people do.
Yeah.
But like this is just like, don't be stupid, basically. It's like, don't harass developers, effectively, is what it's saying.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time, when it comes to code of conduct and they're just like, don't be an asshole, it's very unclear what asshole means. Like, it also goes to that, because there are some people who live on the edge, like, they're not enough to be considered an asshole for a lot of people, but they are very annoying. They're just a nuisance.
I think a good argument you can make against code of conduct is, if you do have one, that is going to bring out the people who feel the need to push the line. Whereas if you didn't have it there, they might not try to push it as hard.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, you're also like, one thing that I really like about code of conduct is that it makes it very clear, like, your intentions. And because when projects don't have a code of conduct, it's like, well, if it's a small project, it's fine. But if it's a big project and it doesn't have a code of conduct, it's like I'm not really sure. I don't think I'd feel comfortable, like, really being participating in it. But if we look, like, GNOME, for example, like, I think that's everybody, or like a lot of those kinds of people really hate GNOME's code of conduct. I know if you ever heard it, ever read it. Hold on, let me...
No, I found it.
Let me send the link.
I got it already.
There's this one section. Hold on. I mean, most of it is, I guess it's fine.
Sure.
There's this one section that is safety versus comfort. The GNOME community prioritizes marginalized people's safety over privileged people's comfort. For example, it's in situations involving reverseism, including reverse racism, reverse sexism, and cisphobia. Yeah, that was the only, like, I guess, thing that people had an issue with. But it's also worth noting that, like, I think it's very controversial take. I think it's fair, because a lot of minority groups, like, yeah, a lot of people who often go through like racism or transphobia or just anti-LGBT, whatever it is that they suffer a lot of trauma related to that. And so it is kind of understandable that they might have a clear distaste against, like, for example, like cis people. And I learned this from experience as well. That like there are people who were mean to me just because I was like cis or just like that. Like before I didn't really understand it, but like now it's like I'm starting to understand it. Like it's people who are like it's genuine problems like that people don't really talk about it because they're not comfortable talking about it. It's like, yeah, like especially when like for example, a trans person who is like who have like very transphobic parents or anything like that, it's like difficult for them to socialize with, or like you know I guess we could say like like cis people, if that makes sense, like
Sure.
So like that's why like at first I was a little bit hesitant, like I was like now to be fair, I don't think it's worded well. I don't think it's like well explained at all. Like I do think it's really badly conveyed, but I do get the point, and I do agree with the intention itself.
I think the issue with including something like this is the way people are going to interpret it is, yes, you're in favor of supporting these marginalized groups, but people are going to, especially with the way it's worded, it's as you said, it's worded really badly, and I do agree with that. People who, especially people who are looking for reasons to hate GNOME, are going to say, okay, well, that means they're in support of hating white people, of hating cis people, so on and so forth. It's like they see it as, you're not just trying to protect people, they see it as you are actively against people who are not in those groups.
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously, if you say that all white people should die, like, yeah, you're gonna get banned for that.
Please don't say that on my channel, Jesus Christ. I don't know what YouTube's auto detection's gonna do with that.
Oh shit! I mean, I guess you could cut it off.
It's fine. It's 2 hours in. We'll see what happens.
But yeah, it's like, right, exactly. Like I just don't agree with how it's like conveying, but I do agree with the point, and I do agree. Like if someone, or like let's say a black person who doesn't like white people. I think that's a lot more fair than a white person being against black people, because one of them is actually suffering from trauma. The other one isn't. So like, it's fair, like if, like at least the moderators or like the code of conduct, like committee don't do anything like, or well, they don't take a severe punishment to the marginalized person, because well, there's a internal, like there's a personal problem with that as well, and that's like one of the reasons why I really love GNOME's code of conduct. Actually, there's also this one section, that really that I think explains really well. Sadly, no one talks about it. But you'll see like the third point, like listen to marginalized groups, but try not to put the burden of education on them. And I think that's like a wonderful way of saying it, because like when you have to explain your trauma, it's like, well, it's a traumatic experience. You don't want to do that, and you're gonna feel bad. And that section does explain it really well, that like it is a mentally taxing when you have to explain yourself, like especially from your own trauma. And it's like that's one of the reasons why I just love GNOME is because they actually do care about that. Like for them, like they care less about a maintainer or a developer or like a contributor being rude, or sorry, not rude, but like being like your idea is stupid, then like that's a lot less of an issue than being racist or transphobic or whatever. Like in some ways, being an asshole is allowed, but don't be like uh racist or anti-LGBT or whatever. Or, like don't actively um what's the word, discriminate groups. But yeah, like well, yeah. I mean, I went really off the rail, but what I meant to say is like that's like one of the reasons like I'm in support of code of context. It's like it's publicly displayed that okay, they they want to protect those groups, and that's fine. Like I'm all for it.
Well, I think it's important to make the priorities of the project clear. Like, whatever they're going to be, have them laid out. Like, I think that part of a code of conduct, I definitely can agree with, for sure. Like, just like if this is the stance the project wants to take, make it clear that's the stance the project's going to take. Not, hey, we're just going to randomly get rid of people because I just feel like doing it right now. I just have an issue with them at this very moment.
Yeah.
It makes it clear from the beginning what you're getting yourself involved with.
Yeah. Sadly, it's just not worded well. But what's called covenant, oh my god, the one that you had an issue with. Yeah, that one. It's kind of similar. I'm pretty sure it's like almost the same. It's like, or is there like something that like you really have an
I
issue
haven't read
with?
it in a while. I would need to reread it to find the exact things. But we are past the 2-hour mark now, so we probably should be wrapping this up anyway.
Oh right, yeah.
So let people know where they can find your stuff or whatever you want to shout out. If you want to shout out a project or something to get more developers on it.
Yeah, GNOME. Obviously. Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's worth noting that like at face value, like it might look like a very corporate project, but in reality, like if you actually look and like if you actually like spend your time in GNOME, you'll realize that there's a lot of um there's a lot of volunteers. And there's also like Google's Summer of Code as well, like where a lot of the maintainers um help, or they teach students with coding. And it's also that like if even if you're a new developer, um if you look at GNOME projects, like any project, like including GNOME Calendar, Nautilus, um there is a newcomers tag where new developers, or like developers who are not really like familiar with GNOME's code bases, can actually start somewhere, and or even like ask questions or whatever. Like one thing's for sure is that like if you need code advice, or like if you want to ask for implementation details, I do think that the developers are really nice, like with that. Like they're going to give a lot of feedback, and like when I say feedback, they are gonna give a lot of feedback. Like I remember, like there are times when like when I contribute to GNOME Calendar, like even for an extra new line, Georges will review that and be like, remove that new line. That's how picky someone can be, but I do think it's like the right thing to do. Like they want good code. So yeah. Right. Yeah. I didn't mean to talk that much.
No, I was just clearing my throat. It's all good. All good.
Yeah. GNOME, I guess. Oh, Vanilla OS, why not? There's a Discord server. You can say hi to us if you want. Um, I guess like I'm on Mastodon. Uh, there's my blog as well.
Mhm.
There's my YouTube channel. Uh, I don't post anything really, but I mean, if you want to see my course project, I guess that's you're welcome to.
Sure. Okay.
Um, yeah. Uh, what else? I mean, I would say Twitter, but fuck Twitter. Um, what else? Yeah, I guess that's it. I'm not really, yeah, I'm not really involved that much online
Mhm.
anymore. Like, I kind of stopped. Well, I didn't stop, but I don't write as many blog posts anymore because like 4chan,
Mhm. Fair
and
enough.
yeah, it's yeah.
So is that all you want to mention
But
then?
yeah, I guess I guess that's fine. Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah enough.
Awesome. As for me, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. I've got my gaming channel, Brody on Games. I stream there twice a week. Clips go up every other day. I stream Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. ACDT. And right now I'm playing through The World Ends With You and Neptunia. Be sure to check that out. If you're listening to the audio version of this, you can find the video version on YouTube at Tech Over Tea. If you're watching the video, you can find the audio on any podcast platform. There is an RSS feed. Stick in your favorite app, and you'll be good to go. What do you want to say? How do you want to sign us off?
Um. Uh. Well, I was not prepared for that.
No one is.
I guess I could. I guess I can just say goodbye.
See you guys later.